Next up, we have Travon Walker, the defensive end out of Georgia, who, again, is another fascinating player. He's a guy that has really risen in terms of his stock here as of late, particularly post-combine, where he had an absolutely electric performance. In case you guys are unfamiliar, he at 272 pounds and 6'5", had a 4.5 140-yard dash, a 4.32 shuttle, a 6.893 cone, a 35.5-inch vert, and a 10-foot 3-inch broad jump, which are all, in the 90 percentile, essentially, of all edge rushers that have participated at the combine. And in that regard, an absolute freak of an athlete. That is, if that's not your first note when watching Travon Walker, I just don't know what you're watching. And I think that he supplements that athleticism with a really high motor. That was actually my second note, that, he had a high motor and was always working forwards. And I appreciated that in terms of, a lot of these guys, there are, even like a lot of guys, I don't want to say they're content being blocked, but they're content with stalemates, right? And, as long as they maintain their gap integrity, it's cool. It felt like Walker was not that type of guy. And Georgia, they'd run him sometimes as a nose tackle, sometimes as a 3 technique, a 5 technique, obviously, a 4 tech, pretty much anywhere across the D-line. And whether Walker was going against somebody that had, 20 pounds on him, 40 pounds on him, inside, wherever it was, it just felt like he did a very good job keeping up that motor. In fact, I gave him an 8.75 out of 10 in that regard. The highest motor grade I've given any of this year's defensive end class to this point. Some other notes I made. Really solid hand placement on his strikes, and he was able to get good extension. It was kind of funny because prior to watching his film, I didn't know that he had 35.5-inch arms. So then, that was another note that I made. His ability to long arm guys while pass rushing was just incredible. And then you realize, like, oh my goodness, this guy has the second longest arms of the 70 players I've watched so far, including tackles, guards, centers, anybody and everybody. Travon Walker. The only guy, as far as I remember, that had longer arms than Walker was Daniel Falele, the 384-pound, 6'9" tackle out of Minnesota, which is pretty absurd and really freakishly rare, right? So, I can see why teams, just off the physical intangibles, are falling absolutely in love with this guy. I totally get it. There is some rawness, no question, to his game. My first negative note was not a ton of nuance in terms of his hand usage, either while rushing the passer or while trying to shed against the run. And those were two of my lower grades that I gave him. I gave him a 5 out of 10 on hand usage as a pass rusher, and a 7 out of 10 on block deconstruction as a run defender. As really what I'm looking for with those grades are your ability to stack and shed, and he had the stacked part down with, like I said, the hand placement and the extension. Guys were very rarely getting into his chest and driving him off the line of scrimmage, but the shedding, I thought he could have done a better job at, right? Finding the ball with your eyes, shedding with your hands, making a play. I thought that there was definitely room to kind of put things all together there for Walker, which, if he's able to do that, then you might have one of the better playmakers against the run in the entire NFL at the D-end position. That's very feasible. In terms of some other grades that I gave him, just rattling them off here. Explosiveness and quickness. I gave him a 14.5 out of 15. Incredibly high. I thought that he was, like I said, his ability to anchor and set the edge, I gave him a 13.5 out of 15. Which, again, I thought was a testament to not only the long arms, obviously, I keep saying it, but, Georgia's defense, they were willing to put a 270-pound guy in at nose tackle at times, right? Like, I think that just tells you kind of what they thought of him. And I saw why, because it just looked like he played stronger and played heavier in a good way in terms of being harder to move than a 275-pound defensive end. He moved around like he was a linebacker, but sometimes when you were trying to drive block him, he looked like a big one technique at times, right? In terms of his ability to fend off guys and prevent them from being able to reestablish the line of scrimmage. So I thought he was rather impressive there. Where I did knock him quite a bit, besides the hands, it was the flexibility and bend. I would say he was rather stiff especially considering his athletic profile. I give him a 10.5 out of 15, which, when we're talking about these high grades, in the 80s, when I'm taking 5 points off, essentially, that's a decent little chunk there, regardless. Some of the other grades, block recognition, I gave him a 3 out of 5. That kind of speaks again to the stacking and shedding. A big part of block recognition is just being able to understand what the offense is trying to do to you, and that will kind of take you to the ball, right? So when I say he wasn't really able to find the ball and shed, a part of that is obviously the find the ball. And by and large, your offensive linemen that are blocking you are going to take you to the ball, right? If he's a 5 technique and they're blocking out on you, the play is, most likely going inside of you to the B gap or potentially the A gap, right? Or if you are a 5 technique and the tackle is trying to reach you and get to your outside shoulder, the ball is probably going outside of you, right? Like, it's not that complicated to say out loud in words. It's a lot different to actually process it and, read and react to it. And I thought that was where Walker struggled a little bit. I'm sure he knows that, but it's just got to be something that becomes more of a second nature to him between the lines. Otherwise, I did give him a 3 out of 5 on leverage. That was really the only other category that I docked him a little bit, because I thought, at that 6'5" frame, there were reps again where he would just kind of, I don't want to say stand up and run, but there were reps where, he was very high and just trying to win with his quickness. And then once he didn't do that, there wasn't a lot of counter and nuance to his game. So even though he's still trying to proceed forward and he's still moving his feet as fast as he can, it just felt like there were reps where he wasn't really going places, if that makes sense. And I thought the leverage was a reason for that. Otherwise, in terms of kind of the catch-all grades that I talk about in every video, size and athleticism, I give him a 4.5 out of 5 on size and a 5 out of 5 on athleticism, which is pretty much as good a combination as you can get, in all honesty. So, all in all, that came out to an 82.55, a first-round grade, assuredly with a massively high ceiling, I will say. So even though I personally, and that's what these grades are, right? It's how confident am I in this player at the next level, and where would I take him if I was the one making the pick? Even though I personally probably wouldn't take Travon Walker top 10, top 15 will be close. We'll have to see as we continue to churn out more grades here. But, I can see why a team would, right? Because maybe he has a lower floor than some of the other guys in the draft. But, man, just those intangibles alone, the arm length, the explosiveness, the motor, put it all together and, improve some of those other areas. And we could really be talking about an incredible player, right? And I think that's really appealing to teams, even though there's kind of a risk versus reward, right? Because, like I said in previous videos, if there is a lot of room to improve, that also means there's a lot of room that guy might not improve. And I do think Walker is one of those guys to an extent. I think that he'll be good because he's a good athlete regardless, but just the extent to which he's good, infringing on great, that will be yet to be determined. And that's pretty much all I have for you guys. I had one funny comp written down. I'm not a big player comparison guy, but one of the comps that I wrote down in terms of his play style was more athletic Emmanuel Ogbah ? I don't mean that as an insult by any extent, but that was just kind of what he reminded me of in terms of the lack of hand usage at times as a pass rusher. Like, it really did just feel like he was trying to burrow his head into whatever gap he was trying to rush rather than actually rush with a plan and hit guys with a move. It was just kind of funny because that was one of the major notes I made about Ogbah a while back. But definitely a better athlete than Ogbah or just about anybody else in the league for that matter. So with that being said, I think that is just about all I have on Walker. The only other note I had was needs to work edges better. Too often finds himself running in place into the chest of a 300-pound lineman, which is kind of what I just said, right? He was just kind of burrowing his head in gaps and in chest of guys when he needs to do a better job kind of working those angles, trying to get guys' hands out of the way, clear their hips, etc., etc. You guys know the drill. There just wasn't a lot of that. Luckily, though, that's teachable stuff, and that's what is intriguing about Walker. So even though I'm not nearly as high on him as some other people are, a lot of what he's struggling with is teachable. So, hey, if you're a team that thinks you can teach it, be my guest, right? And it's looking certainly like someone early is going to take their chance on him, whether it's Jacksonville, Detroit, the Jets. I've heard, top 5 teams. He'll probably be gone after that, so it'll be very interesting to see come Thursday. But with that being said, if you want to see more videos prior or after Thursday, make sure you guys subscribe, support the channel, hit the like button, do all those things in the comment section down below. Now that I've done Walker, I've done Hutchinson, I've done Thibodeaux, I'm curious, who is your favorite defensive end out of this class? It is arguably the strongest position. I know a lot of people say wide receiver as well. We'll perhaps touch on some of those guys in future videos, but I'm just curious, what do you guys think? Do you agree with me that it is Hutchinson, at least as of right now? Even though Walker and Thibodeaux both might have higher ceilings, or do you think that it is a Walker or Thibodeaux, and why? I'd be very interested to hear your thoughts in the comment section down below. But with that being said, that officially is all I have for you guys in this video. Hopefully I'll see you guys next time. Peace, guys.